Hey guys, it's Krista Tyus here, and in today's video we're going to actually talk about all three parts of the IRS examination and really help you guys prepare to take the special enrollment examination in 2019 as well as 2020, so you can go ahead and become a licensed enrolled agent by the Internal Revenue Service. So welcome, quick introduction if you are new to me. My name is Krista. I am an enrolled agent by the Internal Revenue Service, and I also help tax professionals, bookkeepers, accountants, CPAs. I teach you guys how to get more clients and build a multiple six-figure firm using social media. So that's my program called Tax and Accounting Clients on Demand. So I'm gonna put some links below to check out everything in this video that we're going to talk about today. I'm also going to put the links. I'm going to show you how you can get the exam outline for the special enrollment examination, so you know exactly what is tested on the EA exam. So a lot of you guys ask me, like, what's tested, how do I know, and things like that. So if you guys are watching this live, go ahead, introduce yourself, let me know what city you are viewing from, and start to, you can ask your questions while we're going through this. So the very first thing that we're going to go over is the IRS Special Enrollment Examination Part 1 test, right? Part 1 is about individual tax law. And on the examination content outline, it has in bolded marks the primary categories that you guys are going to be tested on when it comes to Part 1 of individual tax law. So this is going to include preliminary work to prepare tax returns first. So you need to understand, what are the requirements when you first get a tax client, what documents you should be asking for when you sit down with a tax client, sources of income. You need to know the taxpayer filing status, that's very important. So you need to understand like the differences between head of household, married filing joint, married filing separate, as well as qualifying widow, widower. So you can make sure that your client is claiming the right filing status, as well as claiming the applicable credits and deductions that they are entitled to, because depending on your filing status would determine what type of credits and deductions that your client can actually qualify for. So that's going to be about 20, it says here, about 17 questions on the exam would be dedicated towards just the preliminary work to prepare tax returns. Okay. Now the second thing is income and assets. So this part of the exam is going to go over the taxability of wages, salaries, and other earnings, right? You're going to really have to understand the difference between earned income and unearned income. You're also going to have to understand, gambling income, tax treatments for U.S. residents, as well as non-residents, and foreign income. And it's going to be about 21 questions just on the income aspect and all the different types of income that taxpayers can have and how that income is taxed, okay? So we flip to the second page. The next thing that you're going to be tested on is taxation. So we're still talking about the individual exam right now. So under taxation, you have self-employment tax, you have excess Social Security withholdings, you have the healthcare individual responsibility payment and exceptions, you have net investment income, Social Security and Medicare tax. This is all of the applicable taxes for your clients, alternative minimum tax and credit for prior year. So you need to understand how these taxes applies, what are the underpayment penalties and interest for these taxes, and it's going to be about 14 questions just on taxation. And here's some other tax. So you have retirement planning, education planning, reporting obligations for individuals, and items that will affect future and past returns, such as carryovers and net operating losses. Now the fifth part that we have here is specialized returns for individuals. So you're gonna have about 12 questions just on specialized returns. So your specialized returns is your estate tax, right? Your gift tax, your international information reporting. So you need to understand like FBAR form 8938. You're gonna have to understand gross estate and taxable estate. You're also gonna have to understand like gift splitting and annual per donee exclusion. So all of that stuff, like, whew, it's a lot, guys. It's a lot of tax law. But the individual tax exam, the exam is broken down with 100 questions. And the content outline lets you know about how many questions you can expect for each section. Now, they do say that this is not an all-inclusive topic, that there may be topics that they missed on here. And this is directly from Prometric, which is the testing center that you guys are going to go to and to actually take your enroll agent exam. So you have to sit for 3 different exams, and your total exam time is going to be about 4 hours. You're going to have 3.5 hours to actually do and go through the exam, and about 30 minutes of just like instructions, right, on how to answer the questions, how to navigate the system. And a lot of people think, well, I know when I first took the enroll agent exam, when I actually sat down for testing, I thought 3 hours was more than enough time. And honestly, when you start looking at those questions, you realize that it is much harder than what you expect, and that 3 hours goes by fast, right? So I want you to definitely prepare for that. But I love the fact that you can download these for free. I'm going to put the links below this video once I'm done with this video, because I don't think I got a chance to do it when I went live. I'm going to put the links on how you can actually download this, so you know exactly what's tested on each individual part, okay? So let me see. Are you guys chatting with me? Let me see what you guys are saying. How do I get to my chat? Oh, there you go. Jesse says, I'm studying for the EA exam now. How long did it take you to get your EFIN? Oh, okay. So it took me like 90 days to get my EFIN, and that was like back in 2012. So some people are saying that, well, per the IRS says it takes about 45 days on their website. I tell people the closer you get to tax season, the more people start to apply for their EFIN. So you want to take that into consideration, is that the IRS, as the tax season progresses, more and more people are applying for PTINs and EFINs, and so it's just going to take a little bit longer. So try to do it as soon as possible so you can make sure that you get it back on time. I know when I applied for my EFIN several years ago, I applied for it, I think it was October, and I literally didn't get it back until mid-January. It was around Martin Luther King Day when I finally received my EFIN. And mind you, tax season was already, you know, rocking and rolling, and I couldn't do anything because my EFIN was late. And even this year, so this year we had the IRS shutdown, and that impacted a lot of people that was waiting for their EFIN. So you don't want to wait. Go ahead and get it done now, but it can take, you know, upwards to 6 to 12 weeks, depending on when you actually apply for your EFIN. Hey guys, Shantae says she's in Wayne, Michigan. You guys are in Missouri. Hey guys, Palm Beach County, Florida, LA. 3.5 hours is more than enough time. You think so? You would think it's more than enough time, but let me tell you, when you are looking at 100 questions, all multiple choice, it's tough. It really is tough. Shantae says, I love and appreciate your videos. Thank you, Shantae. Shantae says, do I have to be an EA to get my EFIN? No, you can get your EFIN now. You don't have to be, you just need your PTIN, and your PTIN is free now. They used to charge $30 for your PTIN. You used to have to pay $30 to get a PTIN, but now it's free. So you can go ahead on the IRS website now and get your PTIN, and then go ahead and get your EFIN. 75 says 30 days to get your EFIN. Hello from Detroit. Hey, Katrina, you in my neck of the woods. Shakir says, what's the difference between an EIN and an EFIN? Okay, so an EIN is a employer identification number. That's when you're starting your business, and after you get your business incorporated with your state, you typically go to the IRS website and you get your employer identification number. This is the business social security number, right? You have your social, and then you have your EIN, which is your business social, right? It's kind of like that, but it's called the employer identification number, and that's what you use to open up your business bank account. You can also get business credit in your EIN, as well as that's what you're going to use to file your taxes for your business return when you do get incorporated. I'm currently enrolled in your EA program. Hey, welcome. Getting the EA certification will allow me to open up a tax office prior to season starting. Well, you don't need to become an EA to do taxes. I just always recommend it because, as I just went over, you go over a lot of tax law. And actually, let's go through. I actually want to go through part 2 and part 3 with you guys. So on part 2 of the EA, the Special Enrollment Examination, that's the official name for it, guys. It's called IRS Special Enrollment Examination, just so you guys know. So if you see SEE, that's what people are referring to. but I'm probably just going to refer to it as the EA exam. So on part 2, this is specifically going over business tax law. So the first thing that you're going to be tested on is business entities. Now it says here it's going to be about 28 questions just on business entities. So you're going to have to know in detail sole proprietorships, partnerships, corporations, S corporations, farmers, right? LLCs. You're also going to have to know about tax exempt entities and associations such as nonprofits. You're actually going to have to know employer identification numbers. So I just spoke about that. That's actually on the exam as well. You're going to have to be familiar with accounting periods, accounting methods, reporting requirements such as forms W-2, W-4, and Form 1099. And then you're going to get into each individual business entity. So you're going to go in detail on tax law for partnerships. So you need to understand partnership income, expenses, distributions, and flow through. You also need to understand corporations in general. So filing requirements and due dates for corporations, forming a corporation, and then S corps. You know, what are the requirements to qualify for an S corp, and what are the treatments of the distributions, are just some of the questions that you're going to be asked in regards to S corps. Now, the second thing on here, it says business financial information. So you're going to be asked specifically about business income. And then it says here 39 questions you can expect just on the financial information. So this is the bulk of the 100 questions. So this is going to include all business income, what counts as gross receipts and other income for a business, cost of goods sold, such as inventory, expenditures, including uniform capitalization rules, net income, net operating losses. You're also going to go through gain or loss on disposition of depreciable property and cancellation of business debt. And then you're going to get into business expenses, deductions, and credit. So this is where you're going to talk about depreciation, business bad debt, business travel, meals, and gift expenses. You need to understand like how a business expenses applies to deductions and credits, as well as casualties, thefts, federal excise taxes, employment taxes, just to name a few. Next is business assets. So you need to know like the basis of assets, you know, like-kind exchange. And if all of this is sounding foreign to you guys, you just better know that you need to study up. And then we get into financial records, advising the business taxpayer. So letting them know their filing obligations, their deposit obligations, their record keeping requirements, right? So how are businesses supposed to keep their bookkeeping? You know, per the Internal Revenue Code, how long are they supposed to keep paperwork and documents to substantiate the expenses and income that they claim on their tax return, right? And then the last thing on here is specialized returns and taxpayer. So it says about 18 questions just on specialized returns. So specialized returns is trust and estate income tax, exempt organizations, retirement plans, farmers. And I always thought the farmers aspect was so intriguing because, you know, I'm a city gal. So, you know, I don't work with farmers. I've never done a farming return or farming sole proprietor, but obviously they're all over the place. It's just where I'm located, my demographic, I never came across that. So that was especially interesting to learn about tax law when it comes to the farming industry. Let's see, what else are you guys saying? Is the EA exam done on a computer or on paper? Asked because I would need accommodations. Oh, manual. So the EA exam is actually computerized. So you actually go to an offsite location and it's done through Prometric. So you're actually going to register with Prometric, and it's prometric.com. And when you go to prometric.com, it'll say something like, look for your exam. And you're just going to type in enroll agent. It's going to pull up the information to register to take the IRS special enrollment examination. Once you do that, it's going to give you locations in your area, typically within a 10-mile radius, that you're going to be able to drive to, and you have to test in their computer labs, right? So these computer labs have cameras, they have testing facilitators. You got to check in with your government issued identification, and that's where you're going to go in and they're going to sit you down. You can't take anything. You can't take your phone. You can't have like any, I think they might allow you some water, but you can't have like food or anything in there. And they give you a sheet of paper with a pencil, and that's it. And at the end of testing, you have to turn in that sheet of paper that you jotted notes on with that pencil before you leave the testing center, because, you know, they don't want you writing down the questions, I guess, leaving there. So yes, you will go to a testing center and take it on a computer. That is how the tests are administered. You're welcome. All right, so last things last, right? We're gonna talk about representation, which honestly, I think it's the easiest, right? I think representation is the easiest, and representation goes over, really the practices and procedures and the rules that govern tax professionals, right? You need to know what you can and what you cannot do, and Test 3 goes over all of that, right? So on the first part, it says practices and procedures. So you're going to expect 25 questions just on practices and procedures. So some of the things that they're going to test you on is practice before the Internal Revenue Service, right? What constitutes practice before the IRS? You need to understand requirements for enrolled agents. You know, what information should be furnished to the IRS? What's an omission or error on a return? You also have rules for employing or accepting assistance. They tell you how you should, like the fee rules, right? Due diligence requirements, conflicts of interest. You're going to go through all of that. And then it's going to flow into sanctionable acts, right? So what could get you disbarred as an enrolled agent? What's a no-no, right? It's going to go over frivolous submissions and fraudulent transactions. And then you're going to go over rules and penalties, right? So there are assessments and appeal procedures that you need to understand. Prepare penalties that you potentially could be opening up yourself to when you don't follow the rules, when you don't file the tax return correctly, when you don't do your due diligence, right? So you want to make sure that you know that. It also goes into representation before the IRS. So this is all of what you can and cannot do before the Internal Revenue Service as an enrolled agent. And you can expect about 24 questions just on this part of the exam. So some of the things that they have on here is power of attorney, right? So it gives you what is the authority granted by the taxpayer when they do a power of attorney? What's the signature authority? What is the purpose of a power of attorney, right? You're going to go through collection notice, levy and seizure of taxpayers' property. You're also going to go through trust fund recovery penalties. And lastly, amended returns and claims for refund. So Form 1040X and Form 843. You're also going to go over penalties and interest abatement. So if clients, incur any penalties or if they incur any interest, how can you get those abated, which really just means removed from your client's profile or their tax case. And then you're going to go through representing a taxpayer in audits and examinations. So you need to know, like, what is the IRS's authority? How are you supposed to verify and substantiate entries on a tax return? How to do an innocent spouse, explanations of taxpayer options. You need to understand, you need to be able to understand and articulate to your client, what their audit options are, right? And that's all going to be tested as well. Now, the last part that's going to be tested is completion of the filing process. So you're going to expect about 17 questions just on the last part. So they're going to be asking about accuracy, right? So how are you making sure that the tax return that you just prepared is accurate? And you can't just rely on the software, right? That has been court cases where the tax professional has been like, oh, well, I just relied on the software to check my errors and to make sure that everything was in there, right? So the IRS will actually specifically teach you that that's not a reliable source. You need to know tax law. You need to have an understanding of what you're doing. And that's really the one of the biggest parts on why I tell people to go for enrolled agent status, because you learn so much about tax law and you're just able to help your clients at a much higher capacity because you are more knowledgeable, right? A lot of this stuff, like for instance, I was just telling you guys, I've never had a farming client, so I never had to use farming tax law. But what if I do, right? Or what if I come up with a client that has an estate return or a trust? And you don't want to be the tax professional that turns away business for the most part because you just don't know tax law. Now, that's not to say you're going to be able to take every client, because tax law is very cumbersome. It's a lot. So even still, you're not going to be able to take on every client because you just won't have the competence to take on every client. And actually the IRS says that, they want to make sure that you are investing in your education, that you are taking the steps to learn tax law before you actually take on clients, because ignorance is not a excuse for them. Like, just because you can say, oh, I just didn't know the law, then you're like, oh well, right? So you want to make sure that you know the tax law and that you are applying it to your client's tax situation at the highest level, right? So I'm going to put the links to these examination content outlines below this video when I end this live video. So if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and pop them in the chat so I can answer your questions really quick. When does testing start? So you can test up until the end of February 2020. You can go ahead and try to take all 3 exams, right? Before the next testing period starts. So after February 2020, after February 2020, at the end of the month, the testing period ends and it reopens back up sometime in May, I believe. And that's when you can start taking the exams again with the new tax law, because the new tax law will be included next year on next year's exam. So part 1 and part 3 was pretty easy. Part 2 is a tricky one. So part 2 is business. So yeah, I would say business is a tricky one. They say only 46% of the people that take the business exam pass it. So that's less than half of people that take the business exam pass on the first try. Are EIN and EFIN required for a tax preparer to serve the clients? And I would say yes, because I would say, I mean, you can prepare taxes without an EIN. You could just use your social security number. You could just be taxed as a disregarded entity as a sole proprietor, and you could just file your own taxes on Schedule C. So you don't need an EIN for that, but you do need an EFIN. You do definitely need an EFIN, which is your electronic filing identification number. That's the number that you're going to use to actually submit tax returns electronically to the Internal Revenue Service, which is the preferred way that the IRS likes to receive returns. Now, there are some instances, very few, where you have to submit a paper return to the IRS. Some of those cases could be maybe the return was rejected electronically because one parent claimed the dependent and that parent wasn't supposed to. So now the parent that does have the right to claim that dependent, now they have to mail in their tax return. In that case, they will mail in their return. But 99% of your clients their return will be e-filed, electronically filed, which is the best way, the fastest way, and the safest way. It sounds like the EA exam is a larger version of the continuing education exams without the business part. Yeah, and actually I was speaking to the IRS yesterday. She said when you take the EA exam, that actually counts for 56 continuing education credits. I didn't know that until I talked to her yesterday. So I thought that was pretty cool. So you can actually, if you're already an EA, you could just take the exam, a year or 2 later in your exam period, and it counts as 56 credit hours. Towards your continuing education. Now, your continuing education, you have to have 72 credit hours to every 3 years to keep your EA license active. And of the 72 hours, 6 of them has to be in ethics. How successful do you think mobile tax preparers can be? Jesse, don't go mobile. Like, why? Like, why go mobile? Do everything. Listen, you want to be able to work from home. Like, this is how you want to talk to your clients on video. You want to have them submit over their source documents electronically, securely. You want to prepare the taxes, and then you want to hop on a video call or just a regular call, go over their tax return, and send it back over to them. I would not travel to anyone. I would do everything from the comforts of my home. Even if I was on vacation in February, say you wanted to go to Hawaii in February, you could do that running now a virtual tax and bookkeeping business, which is the way I would tell you guys to do it. How do you feel about online-based tax software? Yeah, no, that's beautiful. That's what you want to use. You want to use an online-based tax software so that's going to help you facilitate your virtual office. You want a tax software that's online now, that you can do everything online. And I'm actually going to be doing an updated video about that for you guys, because I know before I was recommending crosslinks, and now I have a much better tax software that we've been using that is a game changer for you guys. Like, this software is going to allow you to have a complete 100% virtual office You only need this one software, and that's it. That's it. That's all you need, right? So I'm going to do a video on that next. Hello from South Carolina. Hey, Tawana. All right, guys, so I'm going to put some links below. So I do have my EA study exam where I talk to you guys like this twice per month, and we're actually thinking about upping that to once per week because there are a lot of you that want to be able to take the exams over the next 90 days and try to get it in before the next testing period. So I'm going to put the link below if you want to work with me and study with me to get your enroll agent license, then I'm going to put the link below so you guys can get signed up for that. It's just $99, and we go over all three parts, right? We go over all three parts, individual, business, and representation. And I also have 3 practice exams. So, 100 questions each. So it simulates the real exam, and it's all digital. So you're going to get used to actually answering questions online and submitting and then checking your answers, and then anything that you don't understand, because guys, this is cumbersome, like net operating loss, right? What's on here? International information reporting, ownership of a foreign corporation, IRC section 965, transition tax. This stuff is like, whew. So if you want to be able to talk to me once a week, then sign up for the course, and I can actually help you walk through the information, break it down in a way that is easier to understand, so you can increase your chances of passing the EA exam. All right, guys, nice talking to you today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.